Hey guys, today we're counting down the top 15 most unusual jobs in the world that you really wouldn't believe actually exist. Let's start with number 15, the professional cuddler. A professional cuddler makes a living giving clients hugs, and believe it or not, people travel from all over the globe to receive cuddle therapy. Often described as far less intimate than a massage and as helping people from all walks of life. Well, despite criticism, cuddling is scientifically proven to release happy hormones like dopamine, and many clients sign up for the emotional support that they lack at home. The 2-hour hugging sessions vary depending on what the client wants, with some seeking emotional hugs, others talking more, and some wanting to sit at opposite ends of the sofa with our legs and feet entwined. Well, according to the number of small cuddle therapists out there, while cuddle therapy might not be widely accepted in society, it is far less intimate than other activities that are seen as normal. Many cuddle therapists have a background in CBT therapy or counseling. Training courses in cuddle therapy have been available for over a decade, so therapy sessions often follow a similar pattern. Your therapist will give you a hug on the doorstep when you arrive, then invite you in and ask you to relax. This is followed by an initial chat about what brought you there, and the therapist will then put on some ambient music and you'll have a cuddle on their cuddle sofa. According to professionals, people who come in for a cuddle range from those who have moved away from home for the first time and just want a mom hug to people in their 80s. Many clients, however, are caregivers who are also busy looking after others and providing support that they don't receive it themselves. Setting clear boundaries prior to meeting is essential, but therapists generally report that the clients they welcome into their homes have been respectful. These therapists focus on a holistic approach to treating people, and there's also neuroscience behind this cuddling. Physical touch activates the brain's orbitofrontal cortex, and cuddling releases oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin. I'm gonna have to get me a cuddle therapist. Number 14, a rodeo clown. So we've all seen rodeos, right? They generally feature some completely insane person in a cowboy hat riding around on the back of a raging bull, which is doing its best to throw them off and break as many bones as possible. Not to mention gouging their flesh with those large and pointy horns. What you might not have seen, however, are the brave, even more insane individuals who run into the arena after the bull has thrown the rider and distract it from causing any further injury. And if that doesn't sound crazy enough, they also dress as clowns. Entertaining the crowd is part of the job, of course, but it's not just about being quick and daring enough to jump out of the way of a charging bull. You also need to be an expert in handling them. Rodeo clowns date back to the beginnings of competitive rodeo in the early 1900s, when promoters hired cowboys to entertain the crowd between events, or if the competition was delayed. These individuals started wearing oversized, baggy clothing and eventually developed a more outlandish gear. When bull riding competitions began using ill-tempered Brahma bulls in the 1920s, the need for someone to distract the bull from fallen riders fell to the rodeo clown. By the late 1970s, the comedy aspect of clown work, as opposed to the protection of rodeo athletes, began to disappear in some parts of the US. But in some rodeos, they're still very much part of the show, although you need to be okay with not earning a lot of money to do such life-threatening work. Serious injury and death are not uncommon, so maybe a pay rise wouldn't be out of the question. Number 13, a face feeler. Yep, a face feeler is a real job. Okay, so a face feeler is paid by companies to feel the faces of people right after they've used specific skin products, such as soaps, lotions, or even razors. When evaluating a particular brand of razor blade, for example, face feelers wait for their subjects to complete a shave, then touch their faces everywhere. They run their fingers around the edge of the lips, under the nose, all around the cheeks, and on the necks to judge how the product has affected the skin. After touching one subject's face, they wash their hands and move on to the next one. Then they rate all the faces, much like grading sandpaper from fine to coarse. And feeling faces isn't just about newly shaven men. Face feelers also assess the skin of others after using various facial care and skin products. They even feel newly washed hair to compare how different shampoos and conditioners affect the texture. In addition to this, face feelers, despite their job title, also touch non-human items. They may be asked to feel the seats of cars, the bristles of toothbrushes, and even their own teeth and gums with their sensitive fingertips. Essentially, you can name an everyday item found on your bathroom shelf, and there's a good chance it's been tested by a face feeler. Number 12, underwater welder. Welding underwater? Is that even possible? Well, yep, and not only possible, but incredibly difficult. Underwater welding is an exceptionally challenging and demanding profession that requires a unique set of skills, physical endurance, and mental resilience. As the name suggests, underwater welders perform welding tasks in the ocean, facing a multitude of hazards and difficulties that make their job extremely hard. One of the primary challenges of this welding is the hostile underwater environment itself. Working at great depths exposes these welders to high water pressure, extreme temperatures, and reduced visibility. The immense pressure exerted by the water can have severe physiological effects on the human body, such as nitrogen narcosis and decompression sickness. Additionally, working in cold water can cause hypothermia, adding another layer of risk to the job. The limited visibility underwater makes it challenging, too, to assess the quality of the welds and identify any potential defects, requiring exceptional attention to detail. The risk of electric shock, equipment failure, and the potential for entanglement in underwater hazards are constant concerns. They must also adhere to a strict safety protocol and be trained in emergency procedures, including proper communication and evacuation in case of an emergency. The weight of the diving gear, too, coupled with the resistance of the water, requires substantial physical strength and endurance. They must also have excellent buoyancy control and be able to maneuver with precision in challenging underwater environments. So yeah, that's quite a resume before you even start your first day. Count me out on that job. Number 11. A line stander. A line stander, queue stander, line sitter, or queue professional is a person who takes a position in a queue in place of another, often for payment. This informal occupation arose out of the necessity to endure long wait times in queues. Line sitting is frequently a paid endeavor, with companies recruiting people, sometimes homeless individuals, to sit in lines for a price. In some cases, people can make sufficient money to sit in line professionally. Occasionally, people also choose to sit in line for non-monetary purposes, such as gaining media attention at major events. The practice of line sitting has drawn academic research. A study conducted by Georgetown University and Johns Hopkins University uses queuing theory and game theory to examine the economic and operational dynamics of line sitting. The researchers contrast line sitting with the commonly used pay-for-priority scheme, showing why line sitting can be a win-win for service providers and customers. In Poland, this occupation was reported as a neologism during the early 1980s, and by the end of the communist regime, there were several shortages of consumer goods. With the transition to a market economy, shortages gradually diminished, but the business opportunities for line standers remained. A Polish professional line stander, Tadeusz, has said that his profession requires certain personality traits: honesty, credibility, activity, persistence, and perseverance. He once stood in line for 40 hours, specializing in lines at hospitals for registration to high-demand and rare specialists. In the U.S., the practice of line standing or seat holding is a service provided in Washington, D.C. to lobbyists, corporate legislative offices, nonprofit organizations, lawyers, and others interested in matters being debated or bills being marked up by the United States House of Representatives or Senate. The line standing company sends someone up to Capitol Hill to stand in line well in advance of the hearing or markup, helping the client gain entry into the hearing room with a good seat in the visitors gallery. This practice has reportedly existed for 20 years, but attracted media attention in March of 2012, during the Supreme Court hearings on the Affordable Care Act, when professional line standers stood there for 4 days. Number 10. A golf ball diver. So, golf ball divers are professional recyclers. They retrieve golf balls, which are then cleaned, repackaged, and resold. Before beginning work at a golf course, they meet formally with its owner or manager to agree on the terms of the job. For example, the course charges the diver a fee for the opportunity to harvest the ponds. The course representative and the diver need to negotiate the price and discuss whether that fee will be paid with money in received golf balls or a combination of both. Typical golf courses have between 4 to 12 ponds. Divers spend 8 to 10 hours a day harvesting these ponds, and they may need multiple days to finish a job. Depending on the size of each pond, though, divers recover balls with the help of a dive crew or a roller. Using a roller is faster than a dive crew, but dive crews are more thorough. A dive crew usually includes about 3 people, equipped with standard scuba gear. 2 divers enter the pond and feel for balls by hand, and the water's so black and murky in there that they have to dive by feel. The divers then load the balls into baskets and pass them on to the remaining crew member on land. That crew member also ensures the diver's safety and helps direct them so they can comb the entire pond. Two-person dive crews may work with a roller, which consists of metal discs on wheels. The roller's metal grooves grab at the balls as it moves through the water, and crew members stand on the ground at opposite ends of the pond and guide the roller by pulling it on a wire connected to it. If the roller gets stuck in the mud or rocks, one of the crew members goes underwater to free it. After they've combed the pond, crew members pull the roller to the ground and pop out the golf balls. Diving for golf balls may sound more like play than work, but there are several factors aspiring divers should consider. For example, finding steady work can be difficult. Golf ball divers generally work in adverse conditions in the pond, and a lot of divers can't handle the low visibility. Golf ball divers work in crews for safety reasons. They may face danger from wildlife such as alligators and from objects hidden underwater. Scuba equipment is heavy too, so obstacles such as fishing lines could trap and drown the divers. Number 9. Smoke Jumper. Smoke jumpers. They are elite firefighters who parachute into remote and rugged areas to combat wildfires, facing some of the most challenging and dangerous conditions imaginable. It is certainly more unusual than a desk job. The job of a smoke jumper is exceptionally hard due to the physical demands, hazardous nature of the work, and mental and emotional stress that they have to endure. They need exceptional fitness, strength, and stamina to endure grueling tasks associated with firefighting, including carrying heavy gear, hiking through difficult terrains, and working in extreme weather. Smoke jumpers often work long hours, battling intense heat and smoke while performing physically strenuous activities to contain and extinguish wildfires. The risk of injury or death from falling trees, debris, or burns is a constant threat. As a result, they need extensive training to acquire the necessary skills to assess risks, navigate challenging landscapes, and make critical decisions in high-pressure situations. Moreover, smoke jumpers must be mentally and emotionally resilient. They work in high-stress environments where split-second decisions can mean a difference between life and death. They must remain calm and focused while facing intense heat, smoke, and the threat of fire rapidly spreading. The mental and emotional toll of witnessing the destruction caused by wildfires, the loss of property, and the impact on communities is significant for these folks. Number 8. A train pusher. So, a train pusher is a worker who pushes people onto mass transportation vehicles at crowded stops during rush hours. A role with a long history in Japan. When pushers were first introduced at Shinjuku Station, they were called passenger arrangement staff and were largely made up of students working part-time. Currently, station staff and part-time workers fill these roles during morning rush hours on many lines. During the run-up to the 1964 Summer Olympics in Tokyo, a special issue of Life magazine described a photograph by Brian Brake showing the Tokyo commuter trains where riders are squashed aboard by white-gloved official pushers. Well, in 1975, Oshiya packed commuters onto rush-hour trains that were filled to an average of 221% of their design capacity. If any other place in the world is likely to have train pushers, it would have to be New York City. New York City conductors are well known for using the phrase "step lively" to exhort passengers to clear space by the doors of streetcars and subway cars during the early 20th century, dating back to the opening of the subway in 1904. A New York Times article from August of 1918 mentions subway guards and police directing and pushing crowds onto trains operating along the new 42nd Street shuttle service between Times Square and Grand Central. By the 1920s, pushers in the New York City subway were known worldwide, but were not well liked due to their reputation as sardine packers. New York City subway pushers are depicted in the 1941 biographical movie Sergeant York. George Tobias plays the character Pusher Ross, a soldier from New York City who explains his nickname to Alvin York. He got it because he pushes passengers onto crowded subway cars during rush hours. The story takes place during World War I, establishing that Pusher was a subway pusher in New York City prior to 1918. Additionally, in the Bugs Bunny cartoon Hurdy-Gurdy Hare, Bugs dons a conductor cap and pushes a gorilla while saying, "Push in, plenty of room in the center of the car." He pauses to tell the audience, "I used to work on the shuttle from Times Square to Grand Central." Moving on to number 7, an alpinist. Alpinism, or the art of climbing mountains, is widely regarded as one of the most challenging and demanding professions in the world. It's also a seriously unusual way to make a living. It requires a unique combination of physical strength, mental fortitude, and technical expertise, and an unwavering determination. The risks taken make this job incredibly difficult and dangerous. The physical demands of alpinism are immense. Climbing mountains often involves scaling vertical walls, traversing terrain, and enduring extreme weather. They must possess exceptional endurance, strength, and agility to navigate these landscapes. The high altitudes add another layer of difficulty, as the thin air makes breathing and exertion much more challenging. So needless to say, physical fitness and stamina are paramount to overcoming those obstacles as an alpinist. The mental challenges, too, are just as immense as the physical ones. They often spend weeks or even months in isolated and hostile environments, cut off from the comfort and safety of civilization. Constant exposure to such risks as avalanches, rockfalls, and extreme cold requires great mental strength to stay calm and composed. But what would a cool head do if they didn't have the necessary skill? Technical expertise is critical for alpinists. They need to have a deep understanding of mountaineering techniques, including rope management, ice climbing, rock climbing, and navigation. The ability to assess the stability of snow and ice, read weather patterns, and plan out routes is vital for their survival. The inherent risks of falling, getting trapped, or encountering hazardous conditions are ever present. Alpinists face the constant threat of injury or even death, often witnessing the perils of their profession firsthand. They must be prepared for emergency situations, carry specialized equipment, and be skilled in rescue techniques to handle any unforeseen circumstances. Number 6. A professional mourner. Professional mourning, or paid mourning, is an occupation that originates from Egyptian, Chinese, Mediterranean, and Near Eastern cultures. Professional mourners, also called moirologists and mutes, are compensated to lament, deliver a eulogy, and help comfort and entertain the grieving family. Mentioned in the Bible and other religious texts, the occupation is widely invoked and explored in literature. Most of the people hired to perform the act of professional mourning were women. Men were deemed unfit for this because they were supposed to be strong and leaders of the family, unwilling to show any sort of raw emotion like grief. For women, however, it was socially acceptable to express grief, which was important when mourning a body in terms of religion. Additionally, in a world full of jobs solely made for men, it gave women a sense of pride that they could earn money in some way. Mourners were also seen as a sign of wealth. The more wailers and mourners that followed a casket, the more respected the deceased was in society. But professional mourners aren't simply a relic of the past. Chinese professional mourners in particular have survived dramatic cultural shifts, such as the Cultural Revolution, though not without adjusting to the times. For example, in an interview published in 2009, one professional mourner recounted how, after the proclamation of the People's Republic of China, he and his troupe began playing revolutionary songs like "The Sky in the Communist Regions is Brighter" during funerals. In fact, some cultures even believe that using professional mourners brings a certain religious and historical significance to funerary processions. In the United Kingdom, a company called Rent a Mourner enabled families to increase the number of guests at a funeral by hiring actors to play roles, such as a distant cousin or uncle. Mourners were expected to interact with guests without revealing that they had been hired by the family. This practice also spans religions. Mourners have been hired at Jewish and Christian events and were paid between $30 to $100 per event, not including any potential tips. Number 5. A snake milker. So, a snake milker is a type of herpetologist, which in turn is a type of zoologist. People who work in this highly specialized area extract venom from snakes and other reptiles that produce venom, which could cause illness and death. They are especially trained in handling these sensitive and protected animals, which often have legal protections. Becoming a snake milker requires many years of education. There are two main purposes for the extraction of venom. The first is for research. Scientists may look for specific genetic markers or attributes to the venom to test in various medical applications. Treatments and cures often come from the most surprising places, specifically venoms that have been used to treat blood clots, combat blood pressure, and reduce heart attack risk. The second main reason for extracting venom is for emergency procedures. When bitten by a snake, a patient could have just a couple hours to live without treatment. Snake milkers remove the venom so that the medical professionals can create anti-venom to treat the affected person. A snake milker who works in the field will find employment at a serpentarium. Now, this is a type of lab that houses and researches snakes and other related venomous reptiles. The lab may also have other duties such as conservation, breeding research, rehabilitation, and veterinary services. The snake milker may have more than one responsibility within the lab. Some of those specialist labs are located at zoos, some at universities, and some are small, independent facilities. This is a small and niche area with little actual data, although we do know that they do spend their time tending to snakes, extracting venom and freeze-drying it for sale to researchers, hospitals, animal charities, and anyone else who might have a legal and genuine requirement for the snake venom. Number 4. Extreme Weather Photographer. The job of an extreme weather photographer is an exceptionally hard and an exceptionally unusual career path due to the risks involved, the need for specialized skills and equipment, and the need for mental demands of working in extreme conditions. Photographers often find themselves in close proximity to powerful storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, or even blizzards. These weather phenomena can produce strong winds, torrential rains, and lightning and flying debris, posing serious risks to personal safety. These extreme weather photographers must have a deep understanding of weather patterns and be able to assess the risks effectively to avoid dangerous situations. They also need specialized skills and knowledge to capture the essence of these events. This includes having a keen eye for composition and lighting, as well as technical proficiency in adjusting camera settings to adapt to rapidly changing conditions. The physical demands of this extreme weather photography are significant too. They often need to hike long distances, climb steep terrain, or endure adverse weather to reach the perfect vantage point. They need the agility, stamina, and ability to withstand the elements for extended periods. It makes it a physically demanding profession, albeit a pretty cool one, I think. Number 3. Pet Food Taster. So you may think anyone who even considers taste testing pet food is kind of desperate, a bit wacky, or maybe even both, but you'd be wrong. The job is actually typically a highly skilled one, and more like a combination of a researcher and a taster. Generally, there's someone with a doctoral degree. A pet food taster's main job is testing, not tasting, evaluating a given pet food's nutritional value, writing reports, and determining ways to enhance new pet foods. Still, at some point, they have to get down to the business of sampling it. Before digging into a bowl full of pet food, the taster first critically appraises its smell. While many animals just wolf down their food, appearing to pay no attention or mind to the smell or taste, its smell is actually one reason why they like it. Additionally, pet owners are pretty picky about a pet food's odor. Who wants their house to reek of fish or liver? Well, after evaluating the smell, it's time for the pet food taster to nibble that kibble. As with all other food tasting, testers evaluate its flavor, texture, and consistency, and then, thankfully, spit it out. Is it really necessary to taste pet food, though? Well, yep, pets can be just as selective about their food as we are. If a pet food taster thinks a particular food tastes awful, it's likely the pets would too. The good news? A professional pet food taster generally earns at least $34,000 a year and can even rake in more than $100,000 annually. So maybe cracking open a tin of dog food and grabbing a spoon isn't a sign that you've hit rock bottom after all. Maybe you just need a new career path. Number 2. Volcano Explorer. So here's another job where the name itself almost tells you everything you need to know, or at least tells you that it might be slightly unusual if you want to do it as a lifelong career. Volcano exploration is an incredibly challenging and hazardous endeavor that requires researchers to venture into the heart of some of Earth's most volatile and unpredictable environments. And if anything's unpredictable, it's volcanoes. They can have sudden and violent eruptions, releasing ash, lava, gases, and pyroclastic flows. These hazardous materials can cause severe burns, respiratory problems, and physical injuries, so volcano explorers must be constantly aware of their surroundings. This volcano exploration also requires immense physical stamina and endurance. Researchers often have to hike through challenging terrains, including rugged landscapes, steep slopes, and loose volcanic debris. And carrying heavy equipment such as monitoring devices and scientific instruments adds to the physical demands of this job. But you also have to be a bit of an egghead too. Volcano exploration demands specialized knowledge and expertise in volcanology and geology. Researchers must have a deep understanding of volcanic processes, monitoring techniques, and data interpretation. They need to recognize the signs of impending eruptions and evaluate the potential risks associated with their work. This level of expertise requires years of study, field experience, and ongoing learning to stay up to date. Number 1. The Groom of the Stool. So, the Groom of the Stool was the most intimate of an English monarch's courtiers, initially responsible for assisting the king in excretion and hygiene. Yep, that's right, they stood next to the king while he pooped. But it really wasn't necessarily a bad job to have. Unusual, yeah, but not bad. In fact, it had a lot of perks. The physical intimacy of the role naturally led to becoming a man in whom much confidence was placed by his royal master, and with whom many royal secrets were shared as a matter of course. This secret information, while it would have never been revealed, for it would have led to the discredit of his honor, in turn led to his becoming feared, respected, and therefore powerful within the royal court in his own right. The office developed gradually over decades and centuries into one of administration of the royal finances. Under Henry VII, the Groom of the Stool became a powerful official involved in setting national fiscal policy under the chamber system. It is a matter of some debate as to whether the duties involved cleaning the king's anus, but the groom is known to have been responsible for supplying a bowl, water, and towels, and for also monitoring the king's diet and bowel movements and liaising with the royal doctor about the king's health. The appellation Groom of the Close Stool derived from the item of furniture used as a toilet. By the Tudor age, the role of Groom of the Stool was fulfilled by a substantial figure, such as Hugh Dennis, who was a member of the Gloucestershire gentry, married to an aristocratic wife, and who died possessing at least 4 manors. The function was transformed into that of a virtual minister of the royal treasury, being then an essential figure in the king's management of fiscal policy. In the early years of Henry VIII's reign, the title was awarded to court companions of the king who spent time with him in the privy chamber. Now, these were generally the sons of noblemen or important members of the gentry. In time, they came to act as virtual personal secretaries to the king, carrying out a variety of administrative tasks within his private rooms. Oh, and of the monarchs to have most enjoyed this personal attention, it was Mad King George III who employed the most grooms throughout a single reign, a total of 9, including John Stuart, who would later go on to be Prime Minister of Great Britain. Quite amazingly, the role of Groom of the Stool carried on all the way until 1901, when King Edward VII decided to abolish it. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope to see you in the Privy Chamber. Thank you to our channel members.